Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Restaurant Incubator. So, when I first started out with the Restaurant Incubator, I started off with some book reports. So, I talked about some of my favorite and most influential cookbooks. I've gone back and looked at some of those episodes, and they're not fantastic, but there's something there. So, today I thought I would talk about how many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cookbooks that I want to take you through. I think they were formative for me, and I think that if you are on your way up, these are ones that you should definitely look at. I know that you'll be able to get something out of them, and they span the range from cocktails to fine dining to soul food to desserts, baking, and pastry. So it's fun to read those desert island um, lists. They ask a bunch of chefs, if you were stuck on a desert island, what 10 ingredients would you have to have with you? Obviously, if you're stuck on a desert island with cookbooks, the best you can hope for is to make a spark, light a fire, and burn the cookbook so you can signal a plane or something like that. But anyway, this is a not a random assortment of cookbooks, but there's some that I probably would have chosen, but they're at this restaurant, or I lent it to this person and never got it back. But anyway, these are 11 cookbooks we're going to go through. I picked 2 or 3 recipes from each one that are emblematic of what I think is great about that author or that restaurant or this particular cookbook, and hopefully it will be something that inspires you. So here on the Restaurant Incubator, my name is Brandon Sharp. I'm your host, and it's my mission here to save you time and money, helping you develop your business project, helping you develop your restaurant, or maybe course correct a restaurant that you already own. As an executive chef, I earned 7 Michelin stars, and now as a restaurant owner and entrepreneur, I have 3 restaurants here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So this is all out of order, but we'll just start from the top. So the first one is Modernist Cuisine. So this one right here, this is the kitchen manual of Modernist Cuisine. So the Modernist Cuisine, there are 5 textbooks, 5 big books, and then there's this kitchen manual as well. And so it's a super expensive, it's maybe the world's most expensive cookbook that's not like some rare book edition. But this is what I bought for myself after I left Soul Bar back in fall of 2016. So Modernist Cuisine. So again, this one's all recipes. The cookbooks are theory and recipes and explanations, and it is unbelievably informative. And it doesn't start with molecular gastronomy. It starts with, the very basics. It starts with flour, water, yeast, and salt. It talks about how bread is a gel. Like Nathan Mirbold, clearly a genius, and applied his genius to cooking. So the 2 recipes that I picked out of here that make this cookbook so useful, one is a digest, or not a digest, but a summary of cooking tough cuts of meat. So it goes from beef cheek, hanger steak, pork belly, pork cheek, ribs, rabbit shoulder, veal breast, veal shank, all this stuff. And it tells you the different times and temps that you want to use for sous vide cooking. So this is extremely useful reference information that this cookbook has, which is fantastic. And then the other recipe I picked up out of here is also, and this just is to show you the range. So I've used the Tough Cuts sheet many times. I had not used the Cold Gels Digest and Tracker many times at all, but 160 bloom gelatin, kappa carrageenan, iota carrageenan, agar, locust bean gum, xanthan gum, calcium gluconate. So this goes through all of the different chemical additives that you could use to make cold gels. But again, it just shows what a fantastic reference this cookbook is. Next up is a book by Tyler Cord, chef at Number 7 Sub in New York City. It's called A Super Upsetting Cookbook About Sandwiches. One trip to New York many years ago, I think I ate lunch at Number 7 Subs. It was right north of Nomad, like 3 days in a row. The sandwiches were so good. And Elizabeth gave me this book for Christmas one year, or for my birthday, I don't remember. And it is the funniest cookbook that I've ever read, and also some of the coolest flavor combinations. So the 2 that I picked out, the first one is called The Empire Strikes Back. It makes 4 sandwiches that are so much better than Attack of the Clones. So just listen to this combination of ingredients: grilled bologna, garam masala corned beef, grape and celery salad, Russian dressing. I mean, it sounds like those are ingredients or recipes that someone just picked out of a hat, right, and threw together. But these flavor combinations are absolutely unbelievable. They are worth trying. They will open your mind, especially if you're like me and you have kind of a literal linear process of menu composition, and you think in terms of ingredient association. And you think, okay, so bacon goes with lettuce, goes with tomato goes with horseradish, like in a Bloody Mary. So maybe horseradish and bacon will be good together. Well, this blows that type of thinking out of the water. And I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he came up with this stuff, but it's just unbelievable. And then another one that's fantastic, again, showing off the level of humor in this book. This sandwich is titled "The Number Two Best New Sandwich in America in 2012, according to the Huffington Post." So, longest name for a sandwich ever. It makes four terrible and unhealthy sandwiches, but it's roasted cauliflower, smoked French dressing, raisin relish, and potato chips. So it's unbelievable. The sandwiches are good. The recipes are amazing. The write-ups are hilarious, and you will never have more fun with a cookbook in many ways than this. I don't know why I have two copies of it, but for some reason I have two copies of this cookbook. Just goes to show. All right, next up is Desserts by Pierre Hermé. So obviously there are a million pastry cookbooks out there. There's some good reference ones, that are thick, just doorstops of books. But I would really, really encourage you, if you are getting into baking and pastry, especially if you're a chef who has spent a ton of time on the savory side of things and always been a little bit afraid or nervous or just not clear about baking and pastry, start with this book. And don't just start with this book. There are, let's see, about 30 pages in the beginning of this that are shaded yellow. And these are basic recipes. There's tart dough, there's sweet tart dough, there's creme anglaise, there's pastry cream. Learn to master just a few, I think it's maybe a dozen recipes in the beginning of this book, Desserts by Pierre Hermé, and you will be well on your way to being able to compose a perfectly good dessert menu. And the two recipes that I wanted to highlight in here, and this is one thing, I mean, Pierre Hermé is a freaking genius, right? And he's the son of pastry chefs, but his brilliance lies in taking some of these traditional French recipes that every pastry chef and every culinary student makes the same way in France with the same ratios and turning them on their head. So when he makes his viennoiserie dough, when he makes his croissant dough, his laminated doughs, he uses the butter to lock in the flour as opposed to using the dough that he's already started to lock in the butter. When he makes lemon curd, and this is the recipe, that one of the two recipes I wanted to show you, he makes lemon cream instead of boiling the butter with the egg yolk, sugar, and lemon juice over the double boiler and ending up with this glossy, lemon curd like you would see in your grandmother's lemon bars. He makes a lemon cream, and so he leaves the butter on the side, right? He cooks the egg yolk, sugar, and lemon juice, into thick ribbons over a double boiler. Then you transfer that from the bowl over the double boiler into a blender, and then with the machine running, you drop in your blocks of butter. And so you're mounting that butter. So as you know, butter is an emulsion, right? Of milk of milk solids, butter fat, and whey. So butter itself is an emulsion. So if you are mounting the butter in, just like you would, the same reason that Thomas Keller makes beurre monté this way, you're extending the emulsion of that butter. So you're dropping chunks of butter into the sweet lemon curd, and so you end up with this thick, velvety, delicious lemon cream that has a million applications in the kitchen. And then the other recipe is strawberry juice. And so this is amazing as well. One of the toughest things to do is to make very strongly flavored, very clear flavored fruit ice creams. And so strawberry juice is one way to start that process. But again, Desserts by Pierre Hermé, master the recipes that are just in the first 30 pages of this. If you're a savory chef, you'll be well on your way, to being able to crush any sort of dessert menu. The next up is the Momofuku Cookbook. So David Chang has had quite a career arc, obviously. I'm sure you know about him. For the longest time, I was cooking and I was taught to cook pork belly low and slow, overnight in the oven. We press it the next day. That's the way that we did it at the French Laundry, a very French style. It got white wine, it got chicken stock, aromatics, went low and slow, lift it out of the cuisson the next morning, press it gently until it's cold, and then it's in nice blocks to set up. So then many years later, I read about the Momofuku way that they were doing it. So they started out in a cold saute pan in a hot oven, get nice color on it, turn down the oven, and then let it cook through. So you end up with the beautiful Maillard reaction to the outside, and also it's already been cured with salt and sugar, so it gets a little extra color on it. And then you have a little bit more of a steak-like chew to the pork belly, but it results in a fantastic and versatile product. So that's right here on page 50 is the pork belly, and he uses it for ramen, pork buns, just about anything else. And then the other recipe in here that is fantastic is the ginger scallion sauce. And so he even says right here, our ginger scallion noodles are an homage to or an out-and-out ripoff of one of the greatest dishes in New York City, the $4.95 plate of ginger scallion noodles at Great New York Noodle Town down on the Bowery in Chinatown. So the ginger scallion sauce, I love that I love that he doesn't claim that it's original to him. I've used it many times, and it is a ton of knife work. It's got to be done daily, but it is so worth it, y'all. It is so freaking delicious. So give that recipe a try. Next up, Charcuterie by Michael Ruhlman and Brian Polson. So I've used this book so many times. It's super versatile. It's super dependable. Every single recipe in here works, which is I'm not sure there's any other cookbook I can say that about. The two that I've highlighted, the one I've used most in here, the two that I've used most are probably the pâté de campagne and the fresh garlic sausage recipe. They're super versatile and you can riff off them in many ways. I actually think, and Chef Teddy Diggs turned me on to this a little while ago, that Paul Bertoli has a better pâté de campagne recipe. It's a little bit more livery, and there's no breadcrumb in the panada. It's just egg yolks and cream. Or it's just eggs and cream. So that's pretty cool. But the two recipes I've highlighted from the charcuterie book here are the fennel cured salmon. Rock solid. Again, you can add all sorts of different spices, herbs, different flavorings to this, but use these salt ratios and timing ratios that he's got in here for the cured salmon. It's a fantastic recipe. And then also, so yeah, do go ahead and make the fresh garlic sausage that's in here. It has a lot of red wine in it, and just the seasoning ratios in here and the mixing technique are just 100% rock solid on the money. So highly recommend charcuterie. So for your at-home baking, it can be translated to you can scale it up, but I've never done like cookies in big batches for restaurants before. But baking by Dory Greenspan, she actually collaborated with Pierre Hermé on his book. She does a ton of collaborations. She's an amazing baker in her own right, and I mean, the cookie recipes in here are it's just banger after banger. And so I highlighted the best chocolate chip cookies. You can see all the notes that I've made over here. The first time I made them was March of 07, made them February of 2019, September 2020, and many other times. So this is my go-to recipe for chocolate chip cookies from Dory Greenspan. It's awesome. And then she's included in here a bunch of stuff that she has made with other people. And so the tarte noir, just a simple, uber rich chocolate tart that's in here. Yeah, I guarantee this is if you need a crowd pleaser that's going to be good for people of all ages. Let's say you have a multi-generational celebration dinner that's coming up at home. Get that tart dough done ahead of time. It's a shortbread crust, but then it's a very, very easy. How many ingredients are in here? Three. Four, there's three ingredients. I encourage you to add some salt, but there are three ingredients to her chocolate tart dough. Sorry, to her chocolate tart filling. So the newest book on the pile is The Art of the Japanese Cocktail by Masahiro Urashito. So this book blew me away. As soon as I read it, I immediately ordered copies for bartenders at our restaurants. It is that good, that inspirational, that incisive, and just I struggle with mixology myself because there are so few variables and it is so finely tuned. And the great mixologists, even the good mixologists, know which levers to pull for acidity, for sweetness, for booziness. They know all their ratios, their sour ratios, and all that stuff. I don't know all of that stuff off the top of my head. I like to taste those things and fine tune them and say, oh, this needs a little bit of texture, or this needs a lift, or this needs a little less smoke, or whatever it is. But seeing someone who is gifted and who can seemingly not only riff on classics, but pull things out of thin air is super inspirational. And the presentations in this book are, I think, the best I've ever seen for cocktails. So the first one I picked out was the Shiso Gin and Tonic. Um, Obviously, glassware is a big part of the presentation, the choice, and how you enjoy a cocktail, the way that it's constructed and the way that it's served. Like glassware is a big deal if you haven't thought about that before. So the Shiso Gin and Tonic, obviously a riff on a classic, gorgeous and interesting. The Sakura Julep, also beautiful, interesting, served in a derby cup, riff on a classic. And then the other one that I wanted to point out, which I think is just hilarious and it made me stop, is a bottle of Krug. It's called the Lermeyer. It's a bottle of Krug with tequila shots. So that's just, come on, give me one of those. Unbelievable. All right, so this is the book that I've gifted most often by far, East of Paris by David Boulay. So this one, and you've heard me say before probably, that this is to me the intersection of four-star cooking and soul food. And that is, I think that's the brilliance of this book. So there's one recipe that's like that. So the Wiener Schnitzel, I mean, that is home cooking, right? That's cheap veal top round, pounded thin, pan fried. You don't expect to see it at a four-star restaurant, but here it is. Look at how gorgeous it is. Look at all the different accoutrement. And then the other, I wanted to mention, I don't have a copy of it, but the old Lebec Fenn cookbook. I remember being at the Strand in New York City when I was in culinary school. The Strand still is, I hope it still is. It was this giant, giant bookstore that was maybe the most fun bookstore in the world to browse. And I picked up the Lebec Fenn cookbook, open it up. There is a veal chop. This is what's on the plate: a veal chop with a little bit of jus on it and peas. That's it. I was blown away by seeing that if food was that good and done that perfectly, it could be that simple. Two things on the plate: veal and peas. And so I had a similar sensation the first time that I opened this cookbook and saw the John Dory and a parsley cloud. Yes, it's a little bit dated, right? The microgreens, it's a little bit dated, of course. It's a product of its times. This is the late '90s, early aughts, but still absolutely gorgeous, inspirational. I love that picture. I love that recipe. That's so cool. The baking book that I have, without a doubt, cooked the most out of is the original Tartine cookbook. The updated version is really, really good as well. But this is the original. You can see how freaking battered and beat up this copy is. It's still kind of holding together at the binding. So the croissants at Tartine, if you haven't had a croissant at Tartine in the Mission in San Francisco, go get one right now. They're massive. They've got that beautiful dark European bake. The ribs to them are unbelievable. And when you break one open, they just shatter and freaking crumbs go everywhere. They're unbelievable. And the coolest thing about this book is that Chad and Elizabeth put notes in the beginning that talk about the little tricks that they have that make their thing special. It doesn't mean that they're easy to replicate. I mean, these croissants, you could make them every day for the rest of your life, and they would change on you every day. But they are absolutely unbelievable, and they haven't left anything out of this recipe. So try that croissant recipe, and then also I flipped to the galette recipe that's in here, the fruit galettes. These we've used them many, many times at Hawthorne and Wood. It's a simple papier-mâché style dough, but it works year round for just about any fruit. And it is, and since they are it's about you cut them in, it's about a 5.5 or 6 inch diameter on the galettes, and it is just such a satisfying dessert to make, to serve someone. It's so satisfying to eat. It's also really good leftover for breakfast. So yeah, try these fruit galettes. You can use them any fruit year round. Second to last is Beyond Nose to Tail. Funny little cookbook. The second one by Fergus Henderson and Justin Piers Gallatley. And so St. John, their restaurant in London, simple, minimalist, everything in black and white. Simple white plates, simple silverware, small wine glasses, no ostentation. Focuses on the food, and the food itself is extremely simple. And the cookbook has an amazing sense of humor. Obviously, the staff doesn't. None of them are smiling. But the recipes are, are awesome. And so I wanted to start with the very first one: salted back fat and wet walnuts. And that's literally all it is. Take a piece of pork back fat, cover it with sea salt, leave it in the fridge for a month, brush the salt off, slice it thinly, put it on a plate, serve it with walnuts. So unbelievably simple. It may be too simple for most palates, but that is the theme of this book, is to really let the ingredient shine. And then there's one of my favorite food photos ever is the deep fried rabbit photo, overhead shot of friends eating fried rabbit with their hands, garnished just with wedges of lemon and red wine. And so just the something about the conviviality of this photo and just the simplicity of the cooking, it makes me hungry every single time. I love this little cookbook. There's some really cool stuff in here. And the last one that I brought out today is the French Laundry Cookbook. This is the original one by Thomas Keller. And let's see what I highlighted in here. So the recipe for pasta dough, it's a very, very rich pasta dough, very in the French style, not in the Italian style. Here's some of the pictures of the pasta hanging, waiting to be cut into tagliatelle, a couple pictures of the agnolotti in the process. There's the dough itself. It's simple, but it's rich. It's got olive oil, a little milk, tons of egg yolks. It makes it fantastic, very supple pasta dough. So great for filled pastas. And what I've never heard anybody say this out loud, but it seems clear to me that in the French tradition, the focus of the pasta is more about the filling, and in the Italian tradition, it seems to be more about the dough itself. Obviously, that is a gross generalization, but it has certainly stood up to me in the cooking and eating that I've done. So then I flip to the page that starts the fish section, and this is called A Passion for Fish. And when Taki Laliotidis was the fish butcher, when I was at the French Laundry, and man, Thomas was so hard on the fish team there, and especially on the fish butcher. The Taki used to say, "Yeah, I saw the galley proofs for the cookbook before it came out, and it said a hard on for fish. I don't know why they changed that." But anyway, and so one of the brilliant things about the French Laundry Cookbook is, the it's still a seminal cookbook. The food photos still hold up almost 100%. And what was amazing to me is when I worked there, the food that we put out there looked exactly like the food in this cookbook. But there's so many cool basic techniques in here, a lot like the Pierre Hermé book, like blanching green vegetables, like tools of refinement, like the tammy and the chinois. And so here's the page on beurre monté. So Bramante, the workhorse sauce, this is what was used to finish almost all the meat and fish dishes. It was used to rest the meat, and it's just such a cool technique, and it's just explained why it's done and how it's done, and such a basic level. So I wanted to include that one. So if you want a little help with your business project, with your restaurant project, click the link in the show notes. I built some tools that can help you. And if you enjoyed today's content and you're getting something from the Restaurant Incubator, please forward this episode to 2 friends who have a bright future in the restaurant industry. Stay humble, stay hungry.